everybody. This is Dmitry Wolfovich with Spiral Process Therapy Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Denisse Silva AMFT. Hi, Denisse.
Hi, Dimitri.
All
Thank
right.
you for having me here. Yeah.
So go ahead and introduce our topic for today.
Yeah, the topic for today is decolonizing the mind. Yeah, we're going to talk more about what this means and what I've learned from you, Dimitri. I think over the course of this time that I've been under your supervision as an associate. So, yeah.
And you've had a lot of your own wisdom and thinking that you've put into.
Yeah. Of course, I've been kind of dabbling with integrating what you're teaching me into really creating my own way of thinking as a therapist, and um, that's really, I think, what I've been learning in these last couple months, just really learning to create my own way of seeing and working with clients in the therapy space. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe we could start with kind of deconstructing this whole idea of decolonization. Because I know that that word that gets thrown around a lot. And of course, we have the history of colonization, both by, Spain and England and places like North and South America and Australia and other places around the world that have been Africa that have been colonized um, by Western people. So that term is often used. Maybe we can start by that. I don't know if you want to speak
Mhm.
to that or.
Yeah. No, I think that word is it's catching some fire, right? Colonization, particularly decolonization is like the word that in the movement that has started. But I think that this is a great topic, Dimitri, because I think we're introducing it in the therapy space. And I think that's where there's a lot of like confusion on what decolonizing therapy is. But understanding colonization and I think the impact of it is fundamental to understanding what decolonization is. So I love that you kind of bring up the processes of what it was for these right Western uh, countries or European or however you refer to them to colonize other communities, right? And groups of people and the impact of that. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and what is that? Can we like define that first? What is colonization?
Hmm.
What is?
Yeah, yeah. I think I see it as a historical trauma, right? And I think it's rooted in the experience of and I almost see it as internalized, like this internalized sense of uh, especially for those that have roots or connections to being colonized, that it was a community of indigenous people. I almost see it this way. And then a group of individuals coming over and saying your ways are inhumane or your ways are savage and we need to right, we need to teach you the right way of being because you frankly do not know how to do it, and we're coming in with our ideologies, right? And and our beliefs, and we're superior really to you and your people. And I think ultimately that's exactly there, the essence of that, right, Dimitri?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I like the way you said that. Yeah,
yeah.
that's how I would encapsulate it myself. Right. So some kind of imposition and that my idea is more superior than yours, or my way of life is.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Say that's kind
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, totally. And I actually went to Oaxaca last week, Dimitri, and I went and I learned about the history of Mexico, and particularly, I identify as Mexicana on my father's side and Salvadorian on my mother's side. But I was learning about the history of colonization in Mexico and how the Spain came in, as you named them earlier. And I went to this museum that talked about like before colonization And then like after colonization, and just really dispelled like the whole journey of that historically for me learning it. And I think I'm coming in fresh with that to this podcast. So it's really nice to like have that being such a pivotal like part of that trip that I took last week. And then I'm coming in here hot with the that.
You know,
So
what I find interesting, and I think this would be a nice lead up to, we're talking about psychology and psychotherapy,
mhm.
but I think what's really interesting about it is that, um, historically or even prehistorically, you know, people have always warred, and even in tribal societies, you would have, battles and wars and takeovers and things like that. And that's not very unusual throughout human life and in
Mhm.
for history probably.
Mhm.
But I think what's interesting about the what colonization as we know it, which has a lot of religious elements to it, like with the Inquisition and things like that, is that it has a moral justification.
100%. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not just, and it's weird because it almost is more noble just to be like, hey, look, I'm coming in there and I'm going to take all your stuff and I'm going to beat you and kill you because I feel like it. That almost feels a little bit more, from this point looking back, almost as if it was a little bit more noble, because when you add this in religious kind of moral implication, then it's like it almost gives it a sort of disguised free card or get out of jail card. It's like, oh, I'm taking over, but it's because it's for your own good. I
Yeah. Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
that makes me feel no, I feel no, there's nobility, like like I have the right to colonize you because it's for the higher good,
And
right?
that's something that I learned in the museum when I went there. There was one piece to it, and it stuck to me because I think it resonated with what we had talked about in our last session where we planned kind of this podcast, Dimitri. And it said that the Spanish, like the ones that were teaching kind of the religion, Catholicism to the indigenos, the indigenous folk there, they were using kind of their role right there as almost like justification for even killing a lot of them. They were using that to like, I'm teaching you this, and it's my role to kill off those that aren't abiding by it. So yes, it's 100% so present in the history too.
Right.
So for the sake of nobility, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's what kind of makes it sneaky or hard to see that
yeah.
there's a that in the savior complex there's
Hmm.
there's an underbelly of ruling over,
Hmm.
or that, oh, I'm convincing myself that I'm saving the world or saving the future.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
injecting my it's a need for power or a need to rule. uh,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You brought up the word last time that I really love, and I want to bring it back up. It's imposing your ideology onto others, telling others what to do. And I think therapy spaces are really in that position where therapists, I think, really impose onto clients what they should do, how they should do it, and really it's something that I think I'm having to still pull away from, Dimitri. And I think you really bring attention to this in your therapy, in your training specifically, of what it is to almost like not impose and to let someone just freely be in their essence and figure out how they want to be and what they want to do. And it's been beautiful to see that in clients, like when I'm not imposing, they're able to just really experience and explore what they want to ultimately do. And a lot of this, I think, comes back to like that inner child is wanting to rebel and not listen. It wants to explore other things. It wants to, right, really kind of be a little bit more wild and free, right? And not have someone imposing it
right,
things upon them, right?
right.
So.
Yeah, kids want to be bad, right? Kids want to act
Mm,
out. Kids want to get it wrong.
mhm.
Kids
Yeah,
try out the way that doesn't work
yeah,
just so they can have the
yeah,
experience of trying.
yeah, yeah. So true. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, there's so much to say about that.
So
And
much.
I think it's not even the fact that maybe individuality doesn't even exist really, but it's the impression of having the choice which allows the experience of an individuality. So like,
Hmm.
just the right to choose. And
Hmm.
I think that's what we're trying to offer.
Hmm.
The right to choose.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And bringing it back to kind of the therapy space, as a therapist that's an associate, and I'm still kind of accumulating hours and learning from you, Dimitri, and taking in what I offer and tapping into like that wisdom in me, right? But it's been really a lot of unlearning for me, a lot of unlearning this imposing the savior complex in me that I have, and I can 100% and admit to that. That's almost like what I think was reinforced in my graduate program, right? Like you're in this place of power, and then that when you have this wisdom and this expertise, I think you even brought it to my attention. Denisse, you're only the expert of yourself, you said to me once, Dimitri. And I was like, God damn, that is so true, right? I cannot impose, all I know is my feelings, what I've experienced. And I have this degree and this uh, background, sure, but it really reminds me of my place, right? That I have to kind of be here and have tools, but also recognize the client's autonomy, right? Like
Right.
it's a
And
really, yeah, yeah,
example,
yeah.
be a wise example instead of
Hmm.
what they should do, right?
Yeah.
And I before we go further, I just wanted to tie it back to that initial colonization piece because I think that it's important to realize that it doesn't, and I think we talked about this before, that colonization is not limited by, color of her skin or this kind of historical background because the process of colonization reformulates itself or finds ways to express itself through other institutions which have nothing to do with um, race or color because you can be an indigenous person that goes to school and becomes a therapist, but the institution has that similar colonizing flavor or indoctrination
Totally.
that
Hmm.
teaches you that you are somehow superior or and maybe there's an indulgence in that like, oh yes, I want to be like, yes, I am like this qualified, like I have this degree and
Hmm.
in that sense of like superior. um
Totally.
but that's what hijacks, I think, the therapist sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And then I think you add the component of like clients also almost like partaking in this like hierarchy and saying, yeah, you are supposed to almost be my savior, right? Like you're supposed to give me all the answers. Like I'm here to learn from you. And I say this to my clients, like I'm helping you come to your own answers, right? And I can, offer guidance and support, but I'm helping you really just stay here in yourself, right? Like really just meet yourself and really understand those parts in you. But I think clients also have that ideology, right? That they're coming in to be saved, right? And navigating kind of that piece as a therapist is important to recognize, and not play into that role, right? Because then we're both just enabling kind of this really harmful cycle, right? Of yeah.
I think somebody said it was something like the need to fix coupled with the need to stay sick
Hmm.
that perpetuates this
Yeah.
relationship. And I think that's what creates these scenarios where you have somebody maybe going into therapy for 30 years
Mm.
and it becomes more of a financial scheme
Mm.
instead of actually trying to help people become more self-determined and alive.
Mm-hmm.
And really helping the community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It becomes
yeah,
a thing, commodity.
yeah.
Mm.
Totally. Yeah, I think I see it now as like helping them become autonomous, like having sovereignty in themselves and not relying, or I think you brought this up really early on in our training, Dimitri, too, but that therapy kind of can start to feel like this codependent relationship too, like you need of me and I want you to need of me as a therapist because I make money off of you, right?
Mhm.
And it's like this codependency. And I really just shared with my clients when I see them during that consultation, like I'm helping you build the tool so that you don't need of this space, right? Ultimately, that's the goal for us to get them out, right? And have the strength and the ability to navigate and to know the tools and the ability to kind of connect with feelings, right? And so forth. But yeah, I think it can really enter that place of codependency real quick, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So the therapist has to check their need to be needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
'Cause, yeah, maybe I don't feel useful if I don't offer advice, or
Mhm,
and then
mhm,
what am I doing then if I don't feel needed?
mhm, mhm. Totally, totally. And naming that transference or knowing what's happening for the therapist, right? And I think that that speaks about us doing our own work, right? And the importance of that. Because I think with working with you, Dimitri, like what you're teaching me was almost like really challenging for me to understand and to step into because a lot of what was happening in me was the codependency piece that I had to work through in me, right? The imposing, right, or whatever processes was happening for me, it was playing into the therapy client relationship as how I showed up as a therapist. So really, it's like doing our own work is fundamental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and how we, as you know, how we talk about it is, this sort of enoughness, right? So I have to feel enough
totally.
myself, and I have to inquire about what doesn't feel enough, or what is lacking within me, so that I can fulfill that. Because it's the classic case where I don't feel enough, so I have to give you advice so
Mm,
that I can feel like I'm enough, like I'm contributing.
mhm,
But the classic case with this is where I find it so funny, and this happens not just in the therapy room, but especially in the therapy room, but in other cases where, it's like the therapist, gives advice, and then the client goes, "Nope," and then they slash that away, and they're like, "No," and then all of a sudden the therapist goes, there's this brief bit of unease, and then they're like, "Oh, no, no, no," and then they try another thing. Now let me give you another piece of advice. And then the client slashes that away. Or, you actually can see that in other relationships sometimes, that can show up. Um, and and then the therapist gets really frustrated because they feel like, oh, nothing is working, and none of my advice, none of my advices are being taken in. But really, what we have to do as therapists, and as people, is to give up needing anything from the client, give up trying to impose or insist on them realizing anything.
yeah, yeah,
But in order to do that, you have to learn to be okay with just being, and that your presence is enough. Just you
yeah,
is enough.
yeah,
Nothing else that needs to.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that that has been a really challenging part for me to really work on, right, in myself and uh remember that. And I've been practicing it this week, Dimitri, and um there's a beautiful unfolding that happens in clients when I release, right? And I give up the need for them to want anything from me, but also give up the need for them to do anything. Like I don't want them to have to cry and have a cathartic experience. Like I'm giving that up and truly what I'm seeing in this week is like clients coming to their own answers. Like they're resolving that within themselves, right? And I'm kind of keeping them there and utilizing exercises to help them really connect to what's there. And but all I'm doing is helping them stay within the realm of their being, right? And that is bewildering to me because it only comes up when I'm so present in myself. And that's really the work that I think I've had to build in myself here
Hmm.
for clients to have that permission to do and to be in their own element, right? So it's wild. But I think what you're preaching is, I think it's almost like I saw a quote the other day, Dimitri. It said, a lot of us, and I think about you in this way, it says, a lot of people are, what they're professing is like years from now, people will understand this if they don't understand this now. Like, this is, I think, so pivotal. And I think this is missing in the therapy spaces in the graduate programs. Like this awareness and the importance of us and our presence and our regulation, right? And giving up that so the client can just be. Right? I
Right.
don't think that that's there. And I
No.
think that's like so in the future, like years from now, the people are, it'll be part of the mental health spaces, but it's developing, right? And I think you really caught on to something here. And that's why I really admire your work and what you do because it really aligns and it resonates so deeply. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
and I'm glad that we're doing this right now because it's helping, I think, define what it is and explore this, and maybe the listeners also get a chance to think about this. But yeah, I mean, it's the the insistence is not love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know who said it, but love does not insist.
Mm,
So if you find yourself insisting or imposing, then you're not really in the state of love. And we can tie that back to that, what is it, Rogerian unconditional positive regard, which is considered to be the staple of psychotherapy.
hmm
But
Yeah.
somehow maybe we make excuses, right? Or we
Mhm.
stray away from that root,
Yeah.
that true
Yeah.
allowance, right?
Yeah. 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 Totally. Totally. Right. I think that's a beautiful quote that you left me with after my our supervision the other day. Like, love does not insist. That's really what I was repeating to myself, Dimitri, like right before our sessions, like, love does not insist. Like, and it was a little scary to like, pull back and but I think it's trusting, a lot of trusting that and is involved in this process, right? Trusting that it'll all be okay, right? Because there's a sense of like fear that can come up around not doing enough, right? And that's all my work that I have to do, right? You can sit with and understand that it can be really challenging, but it's when you step into it, right? There is a beautiful witnessing that happens in clients. Like they're just in that space where they can just really be their own saviors, right? Like bringing it back to someone else saving us. They're the ones that have to make amends with themselves, with reconciliate. That's the word that I've been using lately. Reconciliar in Spanish. It sounds like a beautiful element in Spanish, but like reconciliar with that in them, like those
Reconcile.
parts. Yeah, reconciliate those parts of them that are conflicting, right? They have to compromise there, right? So I think that's what happens.
Yeah.
So,
And I
yeah.
think that that's what you're doing is decolonizing them,
Yeah.
or at least not colonizing them, or however.
hmm
And
hmm
in those moments, you're not participating in colonization,
hmm hmm
a very basic level,
hmm
practicing non-imposition.
Yeah. 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 Truly, I think that that is right. They're working it all out themselves, right? And I'm not imposing anymore. And notice myself when I'm doing so, right? And naming that as well. I think that's an important piece that you bring up as well, Dimitri. Like noticing, like I feel the need to like rescue you right now. You say to invite that into it, and that's what makes it not colonizing, right, anymore. I'm not trying to rescue and I'm here trying to do that. I'm naming that I'm experiencing that and I'm in this space of shared humanity where I would want to step into that, right? And naming like what that's like for you to hear. And then all right, that changes the dynamic. I'm not here trying to save you and be, the hero, right, anymore. I'm naming my human experience to you, and that's different, right?
And maybe it's scary for some therapists to give that up at first.
I think so. Yeah.
Give up that sense that I am smarter or that I
Hmm.
know more.
Totally.
I think that maybe there's a sort of loss in identity or that I may not know who I am or what am I even supposed to do then if
Hmm.
I can't teach you. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that it relates to what we were also talking about, and maybe this is kind of the premise of, decolonize yourself or decolonize the mind, is that we also do that to ourselves. Um, that somehow I can't just be, um,
Hmm.
or that I have to criticize myself.
Hmm.
That's also, and I think that's where we're talking about this sort of deeper, more where this colonization maybe is so deep that it's not even on the interpersonal level what we do with each other, where we impose on each other or give each other advice, but on the deepest level, it's this we've internalized it as the relationship with ourselves. And so, and that shows up as like some kind of inner criticism
Totally.
and maybe this morality from like the Inquisition of like I'm bad, I'm a bad girl, I'm a bad boy.
Hmm.
And that I think that is where there's a deeper sense of decolonization has to happen.
Hmm.
Then within
Yeah. 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 I'm 100% on board with that, Dimitri. Like I see it eh, like even the clients like bring up like, and I see it as like what our parents are often carry that, right? And then that becomes our internalized voice, and then it's like that's replaying within us that we're doing to ourselves, right? That we're like sustaining that. That's almost really harmful to us, right? Like punishing, like belittling, right? Even like what we can even consider like self-harm, right? That self-punishing nature and vindictiveness that we can even extend to ourselves. Like even the brutality of that, I think I connect that to like what that colonization had to be, right? But not on the external level, internally, like what that becomes, right?
and I think that going yeah just a comment about the children thing. I think that that's also the step forward for us is to learn to be more allowing of children in their
Mm,
natural right. I think that's maybe as a culture we're moving away from that of having to um, be brutal in that way or punitive.
mm,
Certain generation, like my mom's generation, where they don't even apologize. It's I think it's perhaps my guess is that maybe it's scary for that generation to let go of that hierarchy. Because, like, for instance, like my mom and I know other people of her age, they don't apologize to their kids. They may feel a certain sense of guilt, or they may do something nice as a way to kind of try to repair, but they would never like actually say, "Hey, I'm sorry I did that."
mm,
And I think that my guess is it has to do with the holding on to that role.
mhm,
Like I'm the adult, and I don't belittle I don't take myself to your level.
mm,
So um,
mhm.
I think that we're moving out of that. I think we're
Yeah.
moving into this more mutually respectful place with younger peoples, the little peoples, uh,
Mhm.
that they have dignity. I mean. of course, this is a complicated issue because there's also like boundaries involved, and you still have to, you can't let your kids eat ice cream and for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and watch cartoons 24 hours a day. I mean, there's still some limits happening, but there is a deeper sense of mutual respect that I think is unfolding. And I think that that also has to transfer then to our own inner children or our own selves.
Mm,
There's a kind of an honoring of ourselves and an honoring of our mistakes um and hurts, to be sensitive towards yourself
mm, mm.
and attentive instead of being kind of bashing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, totally. I hope, yeah, and I think it is definitely changing, and I hope that it is, right? And I'm not a parent right now, but you are, but you're changing it for your children. I think that's where that domino effect is coming in, right? Like that's what we can do, right? For my little ones, my niece and my nephew, I can show them a different way that I interact with them than say, their own parents, right? And I think that we can kind of pass this on, right? And just be an example to the little ones.
mm,
That's the next generation, right? That's going to lead this world
right.
when we're gone one day, right? So, yeah, yeah. Hopefully they don't have that internalized, right, kind of sense of bashing themselves, right? And being so hard on themselves and so forth.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
yeah,
mm. Yeah, and I
yeah.
mean, I think the only thing I can really say about right now that's coming to mind about sort of decolonizing your own self is that, as we always teach, this paradoxical principle that, if you, as a person, if you feel bad, um, don't feel bad about feeling bad. Like at least to let yourself feel it, So, um, it's almost like it's okay to be bad,
Mm-hmm.
because I think. And maybe there's this moral piece that we don't let ourselves be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe that would be I think that would be my proposition to kind of
Mm-hmm.
wait.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I think it really resonates with me, Dimitri, because I'm in this place where I think I'm learning to be bad, right? I'm learning to be uh not be uh, pleasing everyone, right? I have to learn to be bad. We all have to learn to be bad sometimes, right? We have to learn to say no, right? We have to learn to not do maybe what I don't like, right? If that's bad in the context of what that was for a child and a parent, I wasn't able to be given the opportunity to say no or question or just like not want to do something. Now I have to train myself to do that, right? Or not train myself, but like give myself opportunities to
Totally.
be bad, right? To not uphold that, oh, I have to always be good and the savior complex is there, right? Always being good. If you're always good, that's where I think the superiority can come in, right? I'm always good and I'm better, right? So I think it almost can ground us down like, yeah, we don't know everything, right? And we don't have to be good all the time. And that is so freeing in a way as well, right? Like not having to do anything all the time, right? How limiting and rigid is that, right? Almost like yeah, the notion of colonization also brings up to me, Dimitri, like the sense of like being so locked, like one way, one-sided, one-dimensional in a way. I don't know why. Like it kind of brings that up for me. And it's like almost that same like a sense of imprisonment that you have to like release from, right? And get out of within yourself, right?
Right.
And not uphold yourself too. So
Right. It's almost like an ego or an identity, like a role, right? I have to play this role.
mm,
I have to
this role, yeah.
like an
This
adaptation, right? It's
yeah, totally, totally.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's great. And all of this really hypes me up. Like putting it into words, like it's a really wonderful thing to like really hone in on.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, Denise. Well, thank you so much for having
yeah.
here with us, and I will see you next time. We'll
Okay. See you next